Who actually assassinated the leader of the Latter-day Saint Church, the mayor of Nauvoo, Illinois, a presidential candidate, and a prophet? We'll find out next on Deceptions of the Ages. Hello everybody and welcome to Deceptions of the Ages. Today we want to talk about an issue that a lot of people may not even be aware of, and so the first thing I want to tell you is that this information is in my book Deceptions of the Ages. If you don't know anything about the Latter-day Saints or Mormons, and if you don't know anything about Joseph Smith, I would ask you or encourage you, go ahead and stop the video and just go Google the Book of Mormon or Joseph Smith and get a little bit of background before you jump into this. Or just go ahead and go to Amazon or Nook and pick up my book, Deceptions of the Ages. And then when you finish, go ahead and come back here, because I'm sure after you read that book, you're going to find my videos so much more enjoyable, because we have such a common background of knowledge that we now share that is being pretty much withheld from the public. So, all right, question. Did the Freemasons actually assassinate leader of the Latter-day Saint Church, Joseph Smith? And the answer to that is yes, no, and maybe. Okay, well, the first thing that we'd have to do to examine that question is to understand that this is not something that is about being against the Freemasons. The fact of the matter is, and most people don't know this, all of these conspiracy theorists, but if you were to go back into pre-Christian times, you would find that most of the wealthy people in societies in Egypt and in Greece and later on in Rome actually practiced a form of Freemasonry, and they were involved, and their schools were not places where all the kids went to school to beat up on each other, but they were actually schools that were, they were called mystery cults in Egypt, and later on they were turned into academies by people like Plato. But if it were not for the Freemasons, we wouldn't have an educational system like we have at all. And so we owe much of our society to Freemasons. And also, when you go into any town and you see these Kiwanis and Rotary Club signs and Freemason signs, and these are all very venerable organizations, and these are people out doing good. They're raising money for charities, and they're building hospitals, and they're getting scholarships for kids, and doing a lot of good in communities and really binding communities together. So in no way is this anything against the Freemasons. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's just jump out of Egypt, Greece, and Rome and jump ahead sometime in history to about 1844 in the thriving town of Commerce, Illinois, soon to be changed, or actually had been changed some years ago, to Nauvoo. And what is happening in the town of Nauvoo, Illinois? Well, the Latter-day Saints, who are commonly known as Mormons, have moved to the town in great numbers, and a lot of things have happened in the past few years in the church, concerning the church, and around the prophet Joseph Smith. So let's take a look at some of those things that happened prior to the year 1844. So, in the year 1837, basically after being issued a land grant for Missouri, for a county in Missouri, the Latter-day Saints moved in pretty good numbers, and they began to dominate one county there. Well, it wasn't long before people in surrounding counties started to object to how many of these Mormons had moved in, and before long there was a massacre at a place called Hans Mill where 18 or 19 Latter-day Saint boys and men were butchered, basically they were defenseless. And so in reaction to that, there began to be what was called a Mormon War. And this was also a reaction to the local population as the Latter-day Saints began to colonize or move out of the county with which they had been apportioned. And they when they moved into a place, they really built it up, and they built, and they were very industrious people. So pretty soon, the people of Missouri are very angry at them, and before long, there is an extermination order issued by Governor Boggs of the state of Missouri that says that it is legal to kill any Mormon, any Latter-day Saint. It's okay to kill, and they want to arrest and kill Joseph Smith on sight. And there is an incident where the Mormons, the Mormon militia, is defeated by the Missouri militia, and the governor, the general, has a directive to kill, to hang Joseph Smith. And so the commanding general, a general named Donovan, he refuses to do it, and so Joseph Smith is allowed to get away. Now, let's just remember that during the intermittent years between 1844 and 1837 in the Mormon War, Joseph Smith had been arrested, and prior to him being arrested and held in jail for 6 months until he basically just escaped by literally walking out, he went back to Nauvoo, became the mayor of Illinois, and took over the leadership of the church. Now, based on what happened in Missouri and the animosity and the murders that were occurring on a regular basis against Latter-day Saints and this extermination order, the Latter-day Saints did what anybody would probably do. So they formed up their own militia, and as when the militia was formed, the prophet, the leader of the Latter-day Saints, Joseph Smith, was named as the head of the militia. So by 1844, Joseph Smith is now the leader of the Latter-day Saint militia, about 5,000 strong, and they have cannon, they are armed to the teeth, they are packing. Joseph Smith is also the mayor. He's the mayor of Illinois. Joseph Smith is also regarded as a living prophet both now and then by the followers of the Latter-day Saint Church. And so he has an untold number of people who think that his life is very, very important and would probably do a lot to keep that life from ending. All right, so things are pretty much happening as per the Latter-day Saint plans. They're building a temple over in Kirtland, Ohio, and lots of people are coming over from England. And a lot of these people that are coming over from England are tradesmen and craftsmen, and they're stonemasons. And guess what? A lot of these people coming from England and Germany and Scandinavia and Italy, they're all Freemasons. So when they come over, and to join those ranks, Brigham Young, who would later take over the leadership of the church, was a Freemason. Joseph Smith's father, Joseph Smith Sr., was a Freemason, as was his elder brother, who was in the jail with him when he was murdered. So Joseph Smith had a very good background in Freemason. He understood it very well. He was just so busy with the church that he didn't have any interest in it until when in Illinois, he suddenly became interested in it. Now, a few things happened at the time of Illinois that coincided all with each other and all with Joseph Smith's association with Freemasonry. So the first thing that happened is that based on what these people that were coming into the church were recommend that he do, he became a Freemason. And not only did he become a Freemason, the leader of the Freemason, the Nauvoo chapter, I believe, or the Illinois chapter, came to meet with Joseph and personally made him a 33rd degree Mason on the spot. And so all was well between the Latter-day Saints and the Freemasons. And so that was a really good thing for people in the church, and everybody thought, well, now that we're Freemasons, things are going to go better for us because of all this persecution. So now let's talk about Joseph Smith, the presidential candidate. Now, as we can recall from earlier, the Latter-day Saints were under constant siege. There is a literal extermination order to kill them on sight in the state of Missouri, something that's never happened in the United States before, and a law that stayed on the books in Missouri for a long, long time, I will add. Now, what happened next is that Joseph Smith said, well, okay, we're going to start petitioning the president personally, and he went to petition the president of the United States and basically was snubbed. They said, oh yeah, it's nice weather, and he met with some undersecretary, and that was the end of it. They wanted nothing to do with the Latter-day Saints because the Latter-day Saints began the practice of polygamy. And not long after the practice of polygamy, a article appeared in what is called the Nauvoo Expositor, which is a newspaper that was printed in Nauvoo, and basically said that Joseph Smith was a false prophet and that he was a charlatan. And the person who printed the paper, his wife had actually run off with Joseph Smith, and a lot of these women had become Latter-day Saints, but with no husband and no way to continue on with the faith. They wanted to be sealed to somebody so that they could continue on with the Latter-day Saint belief system. So a lot of people were married, and it was a not sexual issue. It was just to get these ladies a husband, and one of these ladies happened to marry Joseph Smith. So he was quite angry about that. And in a town council in Nauvoo, they said, well, you know what? We do believe in the freedom of the press, but this guy is just here to stir up trouble, and he's getting money from these people from Missouri, and obviously he's just up to no good. So what did they do? They threw out the press. Well, bad move. Now, is that the real reason that Joseph Smith's arrest order was issued? At the same time, the Kirtland Temple had been completed, and at the Kirtland Temple, the Latter-day Saints began performing temple ceremonies. Now, before we go any farther, I'm going to stop there because as far as this is Joseph Smith's assassination is concerned, has very little, although a little bit to do with this, but this is a complete sideshow. So let's continue on. What happened next is that arrest order for Joseph Smith was given out, and under the guarantee of the governor of Illinois that Joseph Smith would be protected, he was taken under arrest to the Carthage jail. Now, at that very same time, the governor of Illinois went where? He went to stay with the Latter-day Saints in Nauvoo. Why? Well, you just can say for yourself. So while he's hanging out with Latter-day Saints in Nauvoo, Joseph Smith and Hiram and a few other Latter-day Saint men are in jail in Carthage. And who was guarding them? Only the people that they believe are the worst enemies they could possibly have. So nobody thinks that things are going to go very well for the prophet Joseph Smith, nor any of the other men in that jail. So, as can obviously be expected, that night the mob, the militia that was supposed to guard him, stormed the jail, and Joseph Smith was killed. The men who were in the jail with the prophet tried to hold the door closed. So, as he ran for the window, he made the Freemason sign of distress, and he was shot many times, and he died probably before he ever hit the ground. So, what happened next? The prophet Joseph Smith, the presidential candidate and the leader of the Latter-day Saint militia, has been shot down in cold blood. And obviously somebody is going to have to pay for this because there are so many witnesses. First of all, with all of the people that were present at the shooting, the only witnesses were the Latter-day Saints themselves, who were not deemed to be credible witnesses because they were deemed to be prejudiced. And then the only other witness that they brought forward into the court was a young lady who was at the cafe that some of the mob went to after the act, and he was boasting about and describing in detail about how he had committed this murder. And how they had committed this murder. And this young lady was so hysterical about listening to him and how they had killed the leader of the Latter-day Saint Church that they deemed her hysterical and not really a credible witness. So, after the murder, after the trial, and everybody's going, what a complete sham this was. Even the Freemasons wanted to know what exactly was happening in Nauvoo, Illinois. And so in a letter written to the Nauvoo chapter, they asked them, why were the three men who were charged with the murder of the prophet Joseph Smith of the Latter-day Saint Church, why were they not only admitted into the Freemason, into the Nauvoo Lodge, but they were actually exalted and raised to higher degrees while they were on trial? And the response was, and should be very telling and noting of things that were or can go wrong in Freemason organizations where there is so much secrecy, is that the response was, well, basically, the men were promoted in the Freemason organization because they were doing a common good by exterminating the Latter-day Saint leader. And so with that, that was the end of the story and the end of Joseph Smith. Now, if you would like to know more about the Freemasons, about the history of the Latter-day Saint Church, and the connection of the Latter-day Saint Church and the Freemasons to the UFO phenomenon, then go ahead and read my book, Deceptions of the Ages. We'll see you next time. It is the day before the Apple Cup, and I just want to give a shout out to my Washington State Cougars, and good luck against the Huskies. Go get them, Cougars. Go Cougs. Good luck tomorrow, guys.